Before the billion-pound TV deals, before the stadium tours, and long before the sanitized, all-seater arenas, English football grounds were something else entirely. They were loud, they were lawless, and if you were wearing the wrong colors, you might not make it home unscathed. The 1970s weren't just about football, they were about survival. Some grounds were so hostile, so unforgiving, that even the hardest hooligan firms thought twice. This isn't just football history, this is war history in football boots. To understand just how dangerous these grounds were, you've got to understand the time. 1970s. Britain was a nation on the edge. Strikes, blackouts, unemployment, and a generation of angry young men looking for something, anything, to fight for. Football wasn't just the beautiful game. It was tribal. It was territorial. It was a battlefield. There were no all-seaters, no CCTV, no family stands, just crumbling terraces, rivers of beer, and barely controlled chaos. Police were outnumbered. Stewards didn't exist. And segregation? If it existed at all, it was usually just a hope, not a plan. Every away game was a risk, every away end a trap. And outside the stadium, that's where the real war began. Let's count them down. Number 15. Molineux Wolves. Molineux might not top the list of most feared grounds today, but in the 70s it was a different beast. The terraces were divided. North Bank for show, South Bank for war. That's where the real Wolves lads stood, and no one, not even the big London firms, dared take it. Chelsea gave it a go in 77, but by then, the South Bank had already become sacred turf. Fenced off or not, that end was untouchable. Leeds showed up on Boxing Day 77 and were surrounded inside the ground. The police line didn't hold. Leeds had to be escorted out for their own safety. And if you somehow survived the match, you'd have to navigate the subways. Dark, echoing tunnels where the subway army waited. No cameras, no mercy. You didn't just need courage to visit Molineux in the 70s, you needed a damn exit strategy. Number 14. Roker Park, Sunderland. The Northeast was no place for the faint-hearted in the 70s, and Sunderland's Roker Park was right in the heart of the storm. From the moment you stepped off the train, you were a target, and the walk to the ground, that was just round one. Spurs tried it, West Ham tried it, even Newcastle, their local rivals, had a go. All failed, all left battered. The home end, the Fulwell end, was a fortress. Fans didn't just defend it, they hunted in packs. Inside the ground, away sections were little more than open invitations to get filled in. And outside, you were lucky if you made it back to Seaburn Station in one piece. Before the Seaburn casuals of the 80s, there was already a firm presence in Sunderland. Nameless, faceless, and absolutely ruthless. Roker Park wasn't just hostile, it was personal. Number 13. White Hart Lane, Tottenham. White Hart Lane in the 70s wasn't a fortress in the traditional sense. It was something far more unpredictable. If you were West Ham, Chelsea, or Millwall, you might just get in and out. But for everyone else, it was a minefield. The trouble didn't always start in the ground. It started on the long, exposed walk down Seven Sisters Road. Junction after junction, ambush after ambush. Hundreds of Yid Army lads popping out of nowhere. Some with scarves, some with bricks. You'd make it to the away end already bruised, and if you somehow got through the 90 minutes, the journey back was often worse. Tottenham fans didn't just protect their turf. They turned North London into a gauntlet. There were no rules, no fair fights, just survival. And some fans still talk about that walk like it was Vietnam. 12. Ninian Park, Cardiff City. Crossing into South Wales in the 70s was like stepping into another battlefield, and Ninian Park was its front line. Cardiff weren't always in the top divisions, but when a big firm came to town, all hell broke loose. The locals didn't wait for kickoff. The streets around the ground were hunting territory. Leeds in 72, Manchester United in 74, both got mauled. Inside the ground, it was chaos, no proper segregation. Away fans regularly ambushed inside their own section. But the real danger? The walk back. That slow, exposed trek to Cardiff Central Station, a gauntlet of alleyways, pubs, and ambush points. Chelsea allegedly took the home end once, but not until the mid-80s. In the 70s, most firms didn't even try. Cardiff might have been a smaller club, but their reputation at Ninian Park, absolutely massive. Number 11, Elland Road, Leeds United. Elland Road in the 70s wasn't just intimidating, it was downright dangerous. The Leeds service crew were already one of the most organized and feared mobs in the country, and they didn't just wait outside, they came for you inside the ground. The away end? Infiltrated. Week in, week out. Leeds lads standing shoulder to shoulder with rival fans, waiting for the moment to strike. Segregation barely existed, and even when it did, it wasn't enforced. Punches and bottles would fly the moment things kicked off. And after the match, good luck. thousands would wait for the away crowd to be escorted, just so they could break through and have another go. Taking the Kop or the North Stand? No one's done it, not in the 70s, and many never even tried. Elland Road wasn't a stadium. It was a trap with floodlights. Number 10. St. Andrews, Birmingham City. Birmingham City in the 70s didn't pull massive crowds, but that didn't make St. Andrews any less terrifying. There was no real segregation until the late 70s, so if you were in the away end, you were often sharing space with lads who weren't there to watch football. The Zulus hadn't fully formed yet, but the nucleus was already there. Groups of hard locals who'd show up early, spot the away firms, and go hunting. Inside the ground, violence was direct and often sustained. On some Saturdays, it felt like no one was actually watching the match. Outside, the walk from New Street Station or back to your coach was long and dangerous. Blind corners, boarded-up pubs, and ambushes that seemed to come from nowhere. Birmingham may not have had the same numbers as the London or Manchester clubs, but what they lacked in size, they made up for in sheer aggression. St. Andrews wasn't just a tough ground. It was a trap for the overconfident. Number 9. Main Road, Manchester City. Moss Side, that's all you had to say. Main Road stood right in the middle of one of Manchester's roughest areas, and in the 70s, away fans were walking straight into the lion's den. Most visiting supporters didn't even realize the danger until it was too late. You'd come out the ground, bang, ambushed from side streets, alleyways, even gardens. And unlike some grounds, it wasn't just one firm. City had several mobs back then, including the Cool Cats, a mixed-race crew who were feared across the north. Inside the ground was edgy, but usually watchable. It was after the final whistle that the gloves came off. Police often stood back. Locals didn't. You'd be hunted all the way back to your coach or the train station, if you were lucky enough to find it. And if you got separated from your group, you might as well start running. Main Road wasn't just about football. It was a survival exercise. Number 8. St. James's Park, Newcastle United. Far up north, most firms gave Newcastle a wide berth, and for good reason. St. James Park in the 70s wasn't just hard. It was hostile in a way that caught you off guard. The Geordies weren't the smiling, party-loving fans you see today. Back then, they were territorial, fierce, and often violent. Few away fans made the long journey, but those who did found themselves outnumbered and outflanked. From the train station to the terraces, there were running battles. The locals didn't just defend their ground, like they chased you across the entire city. Inside the stadium, the away end offered no protection. Flares, coins, fists, anything went. West Ham came up in 1980 and got petrol bombs lobbed at them. Petrol bombs. That's not banter, that's warfare. If you took liberties in Newcastle, you paid for it, and often you paid in blood. Ayresome Park, Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough in the 70s was bleak. Cold, industrial, and unforgiving. And Ayresome Park reflected every bit of that. Most away fans didn't even consider Borough a major threat until they got there. The frontline Borough's firm wasn't huge, but they were smart and vicious. They didn't always wait inside the ground. They waited in Albert Park, halfway between the station and the stadium. That's where many firms got jumped. No cameras, no stewards, just open space and flying fists. Inside Ayresome, the stewards were part-time and clueless. Home fans would flood into the away section once the gates opened late in the match. The end result? Pandemonium. Blood on the terraces, fights spilling onto the pitch. Only a few firms ever got the better of them. West Ham did in '75 by ambushing the ambushers. But even then, they were lucky to get out clean. Middlesbrough didn't have the fame, but they had the fear factor. And at Ayresome Park, that was more than enough. Stamford Bridge, Chelsea. Forget the polished image of modern-day Chelsea. Stamford Bridge in the 70s was chaos on concrete. The shed end was legendary, a sea of blue scarves and clenched fists. If you were lucky, you just got stared down. If you were unlucky, you got mobbed. Some big firms, like West Ham and Arsenal, managed to take the shed on occasion, but for most, even reaching the away section was a risk. The North Stand, where visiting fans were penned in, might as well have been a trap. You were constantly pelted. Bottles, bricks, abuse, you name it. And if you somehow survived the match, the danger had only just begun. Chelsea's headhunters were known for a particular trick, letting away fans think they were safe on the tube, only to ambush them several stops later. Everton fans at Bank Station in '78 learned that lesson the hard way. Stamford Bridge wasn't just about holding your nerve on match day, it was about surviving the journey there, and the long one home. Number 5. Goodison Park, Everton. In the 70s, if you were heading to Merseyside, it wasn't just Liverpool you had to worry about. Goodison Park had its own nightmares waiting. Everton's mobs weren't as well known as others, but that made them even more unpredictable. The park end, supposedly the safe section for away fans, could quickly become a trap. Why? Because 20 minutes before full time, the stewards would open the gates, and in came the locals. There were no barriers, no buffer zones, just fists and flying boots. Millwall fans tried to take the Gladys Street end in 1974. The result? 7 stabbed, multiple in hospital, and that's just one afternoon. The walk back to Lime Street Station was no easier. You'd be followed, surrounded, or jumped in alleyways. Goodison didn't get the headlines, but if you were there on the wrong day, it became a ground you'd never forget and never want to return to. Number 4, Anfield, Liverpool. You've heard the chants, "I'd best supporters in the world." But in the 70s, that wasn't how away fans described their experience at Anfield. The Anfield Road end, officially the away section, was anything but safe. Home fans would slip in, outnumber you, and kick off before the teams even walked out. And if you thought it ended at the full-time whistle, you were dead wrong. The walk down Walton Breck Road or through the side streets of Scotty Road became a gauntlet. Ambushes, flying bricks, and sometimes even worse. West Ham's ICF came in 1973 for a League Cup tie and got annihilated. Scousers from both Liverpool and Everton teamed up that night. Legend says it was such a beating, it actually inspired the ICF to organize properly. As for the Kop, only 2 firms ever dared to take it, Chelsea and United. Both failed. Anfield in the 70s wasn't the land of flags and flares. It was a war zone. And if you made it out without bruises, you were one of the lucky few. Number 3, Old Trafford, Manchester United. Old Trafford in the 70s wasn't a theater. It was a trap. And if you were an away fan, it was a trap set just for you. The Red Army ran Manchester with numbers that dwarfed most firms, hundreds deep, sometimes thousands. And they didn't wait inside the ground, they waited the moment you stepped off the train. Junction hotspots around Piccadilly and the coach drop-offs were crawling with spotters. Some perched on lampposts pointing out away fans like prey. Inside, the scoreboard paddock firm ruled with iron fists. You'd be lucky to get through 90 minutes without a scrap, and unlucky if you did. The Stretford end, only Rangers dared to take it in 74. And even that's up for debate. United's rep wasn't just hype. This was a club that made its name not only through trophies, but through territorial dominance. And in the 70s, their mob turned every match day into a manhunt. If you made it back to your coach without bleeding, you'd earned your badge. If not, well, you wouldn't forget it. Number 2. Few grounds in England had a reputation darker than the Den in the 70s, and Millwall were the kings of that kingdom. Away fans didn't just fear the Den, they feared the entire borough around it. Only the bravest or the most foolish dared to visit, and most of them didn't last long. Millwall's bushwhackers were legendary, small in number but ruthless in action. They controlled the ground inside and out, moving like shadows through the terraces. Away fans trapped inside had nowhere to run. Gates locked them in, fences nowhere to be found. There were stories of away teams being driven off the pitch, their fans battered and bloodied. Even big-name firms like West Ham, Chelsea, and Swansea tried taking on Millwall inside their home end, and each time they paid a heavy price. Nottingham Forest holds the dubious record for longest survival, a mere 10 minutes before being chased off. The Den was more than a football ground. It was a fortress, and for away fans, a nightmare. Number 1, Upton Park, West Ham United. If Millwall was feared, Upton Park was legendary. In the 1970s, it wasn't just a stadium, it was a battlefield. The North Bank stood as the heart of West Ham's territory. Only once in the decade did anyone dare take it. Manchester United in 1967, and West Ham fans never forgot. From that point on, every visiting firm was walking into a lion's den. The South Bank, often designated for away fans, was no safer. West Ham's firms would infiltrate that end regularly, turning it into a slaughterhouse. Even getting to the ground was a risk. The surrounding streets, alleyways, and especially the Green Street Market were notorious ambush zones. Forest fans tried their luck in 1977. They managed to get into the South Bank, but by 3:15 p.m., they were literally chased onto the pitch and out of the ground. And West Ham weren't just about numbers. They had organization, tactics, and a brutal efficiency that made them untouchable.